The IRS has begun a sweeping round of layoffs, starting with the Office of Civil Rights and Compliance, which will be effectively shuttered. Nearly 25% of the agency's 100,000-person workforce is expected to be cut by mid-May. According to internal communications, the cuts are part of efforts to boost efficiency through tech upgrades and to reverse Biden-era hiring surges. The Trump administration claims tax return processing will not be affected, but critics warn that layoffs during filing season could disrupt operations, God forbid. Whew. Early retirement offers are being extended, and recent staffing shakeups include firings, resignations, and administrative leave for its security personnel. Joining us now is Congressman and Vice Chair of the Financial Services Committee, Tim Moore. Congressman Moore, do you believe this kind of cutting during tax season is going to have a real effect on our filing stresses?
Good to be with you today. No, I think these are the kinds of cuts that folks have been looking for, getting rid of a lot of bloat and waste that's happening in so many agencies. You know, and what we saw, frankly, in the Biden administration was when they tried to weaponize the IRS, adding all these additional agents to go out and try to harass businesses and deal with this. But what this has done, if you dig deeper, they pointed out how they're able to improve through technology that a lot of these positions, frankly, aren't needed. And in terms of tax season, I mean, we're just a week out, from taxes being filed. So most of the work at this point has really, is being done right now in terms of the preparation side. And then, of course, on the side where it's reviewed, I'm assured by what's happened that this is not going to affect folks getting their refunds and taxes.
One of the concerns that I have seen, and I'm a little bit confused by it, how do you respond to this concern from the left that eliminating the IRS Office of Civil Rights and Compliance could weaken internal accountability and protections? What does that mean? How was the Office of Civil Rights and Compliance keeping internal accountability at the IRS?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, the reality is these are a lot of those DEI holdover programs that Biden also weaponized during his 4 years in office. And so getting rid of this stuff and making the IRS and, frankly, every other federal agency lean and focused on the issues they need to be dealing with is absolutely critical. I can tell you that the folks that I represent in Western North Carolina who were still dealing with the aftermath of the hurricane and trying to rebuild, they don't want to see federal dollars wasted on unnecessary bureaucracy. They want to see those dollars getting out there to provide services for folks who need them, and they also want to be able to have us in a position where we can, pass again the Trump tax cuts to keep the economy moving in the right direction.
Well, speaking of serving people for real needs, you recently introduced the bipartisan Radar Gap, the Radar Gap Elimination Act, to modernize the U.S. weather radar system and close what you call dangerous coverage gaps, especially in high-risk areas like Charlotte. This is an effort to do the opposite of what the IRS was doing. This is an effort to upgrade, modernize, replace aging systems. Talk to us about the importance of this this act, this bill, and what you hope to get out of it. What kind of support you have so far?
Yeah, so you have areas around the country, one of which that I happen to represent in Charlotte, that are huge population centers. We have a major airport there, and it has a lot of great radar systems in place. But there is a radar gap because the nearest radars are one's in Greenville, Spartanburg, the other's in Raleigh, Durham. Where there's an area there where for those low horizon, I think it's below 6,000 feet in elevation, those things don't show up so well. Well, of course, you want to be able to make sure you're detecting tornadoes. You want to be sure you're protecting some significant and severe weather events. And the way the Earth works with the curvature of the Earth, you need to have these radar facilities within X proximity for them to work most effectively. So we've got this this radar zone in our area that really needs to be dealt with, this gap, which is what we've called it. And so this putting in these new radar systems, of course, newer technology like everything else, giving you better lead time, better analysis, quicker results. which, for example, in the case of an emergency, and like we just dealt with Hurricane Helene, right? Time is of the essence. The ability to inform folks of exactly what's happening so that you don't, exaggerate a threat, but more importantly, that you don't miss something or underestimate the significance of serious weather.
I imagine there's also some national security benefits to closing some of these gaps as well, not just weather and safety, but we'll leave that to further discussion down the road. There's another topic, also something that you introduced, switching gears again. You also called for the House to pass the No Rogue Rulings Act. This is an act to eliminate nationwide injunctions that we have seen the left wage against the Trump agenda. You described this whole war from the judicial bench as judicial tyranny, obstructing President Trump's ability to govern. How would limiting nationwide injunctions, in your view, improve this balance of power? And how do we keep that balance if we somehow achieve it?
We have just never seen anything like this before. The number of lawsuits and the number of federal district court judges who have stepped up and entered injunctions to frustrate national policy executed by the president. But the lawsuit may be filed, say, in Maryland or pick a state, and that judge in that district issues an injunction that affects all 50 states and puts on hold these laws. One, it's an overstep for judges to get involved in things that are inherently the power and the responsibility of the president. But then secondly, when there are injunctions issued, for one judge in some part of the country to issue an injunction that affects the entire country. And it simply is wrong. And so, my hope is that the Supreme Court will also deal with this. But, that's a slow process to work its way through. So we're looking at moving legislation forward that, of course, I'm supporting, you were asking about, that would amend the statutes to simply make very clear than U.S. Code that a judge in a particular district cannot issue rulings like this and cannot issue injunctions that have the effect beyond the district or the jurisdiction of that court.
If you succeed, if you and your colleagues succeed in this bill, you would be bypassing years of debate that otherwise would be taking place in the lead up as we march towards the Supreme Court, waiting for the Supreme Court to land with a ruling on this. By Congress stepping in, you're bypassing that whole thing. So again, the question hinges on, is there political, I guess, practical energy behind this? We know that most Republicans support this, but how likely is it that you'll get necessary Democrats on board with this kind of bill at this time?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll simply say this. It should be the law, frankly, regardless of who's in the White House, whether it's a Democratic president or a Republican president. When the president is the individual who was entrusted with the authority to execute and to run the executive branch of government, not unelected, lifetime appointed judges. And so, there can still be litigation, right? If someone believes the president is acting outside the president's scope, then file a lawsuit, go through the process, but don't stymie things. Don't stop, policy from being executed pending all of that. That's simply wrong. I mean, remember that ruling where this judge issued a ruling that a plane carrying dangerous criminals who were here illegally, that they turn around and come back to the U.S.? That's clearly an overstep of federal judicial power. And the American people voted for Donald Trump. They voted for this change, and they expect this to happen.
It's refreshing to hear that someone like you recognizes that, because at the end of the day, Congress has the power to rein in the judiciary, and very few other entities really do have that constitutional power. So, Congressman, a pleasure to visit with you. We went through a whirlwind of topics, but all very interesting. We thank you for making the time.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
Stay tuned. The EU had threatened to retaliate this week against Trump's reciprocal tariffs, but did they just cave? We'll be right back.